happening, all my women's soccer/football fans? Welcome to another podcast episode. I'm Bryce, and this is the women's soccer/football podcast where we talk all about the world of women's soccer and all the wonderful things in it. Whether you're new, whether you're returning, I'm just super happy you're here. If you especially love the US women's national team, the FAWSL, or the NWSL, we cover it all here, as well as a lot of other fun topics in the world of women's soccer. We've got another good show for you guys here today. But before I get into that, just a few housekeeping items. If you guys like what you're hearing, if you're listening on audio right now, or if you love what you're seeing because you're watching on YouTube right now, it would be very, very much appreciated if you'd consider liking, commenting, subscribing, or even rating the podcast or YouTube channel. It certainly helps promote visibility to the channel and helps other people just like yourself join in on this fun fandom that we've got going on around the world of women's soccer. I was super honored the other day. Someone rated the podcast on Apple, and whoever it was, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I greatly appreciate it. It made my day. It's made my day every day for like the last 7 days, so I greatly appreciate it. So yeah, and if you guys want to submit a question to be considered on the mailbag segment of this podcast, there is a form you can fill out that I will link down in the description below that you can fill out at any time, anywhere. And of course, if you would like to follow us on all of our other platforms, including TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and the like, that's also linked down in the description below as well. Or if you'd like to listen on audio, I'll link those down as well. Whew, sorry guys, that was a mouthful. So let's get right into our segments. For those of you who are new to the podcast, I like to kick off the show with a few segments that we like to do before we get into the main bread and butter, which is the main topics of the podcast episode. Let's kick it off with segment number 1, which is going to be the Women's Footballer of the Week. For this week, the Women's Footballers of the Week will be the Brighton Women's Football Club. That's right. They have pulled off what I think is one of the greatest responses to a dramatic loss I have seen in sports for like the last few years. So let's provide a little bit of context around that. 2 weeks ago, Brighton Women's Football Club got clean sheeted against Bristol City, who was bottom of the WSL table at the time, had a goal difference of minus 49. They got clean sheeted by Bristol City by a scoreline of 3-0. So that was 2 weeks ago. Fast forward to last weekend, they turn around and play one of the powerhouse teams in the world of women's football, that's Chelsea Women's Football Club, who are at the very top of the table by a very considerable goal difference, and they go ahead and they beat them and hand them their first loss of the season. The response doesn't get much better than that. And then fast forward to today, which is, let's see, Wednesday, February 10th, and they go ahead and they pull off another consecutive win against, I believe it was West Ham. Let me double check. Yeah, it was against West Ham by scoreline of 1-0. I'll talk about that soon. So, to Brighton Women's Football Club, I salute you, and you are my Women's Footballers of the Week. All right, guys. So with the first segment done and out of the way, I forgot to set the scene, so I'm going to do that right now. For those of you who are new to the podcast, I like to set the scene so for those of you who are listening on audio, you are able to picture what my environment looks like right now, and also the environment in which I'm recording this podcast in. So really quickly, it's Wednesday, February 10th at approximately 4:52 p.m. It's -5 out right now here in the Midwest. The cold weather front has protruded into our lives, and it's been absolutely dreadful. It's cold all the time. I'm cold at the office, cold in my house, cold in the car. But the one thing that keeps me lifted is going to Dunkin' Donuts every once in a while and getting a nice coffee, a nice hot coffee, I should say. Speaking of which, they have great Valentine's Day flavors for those of you who are into coffee like I am. I don't have any of my strip lights on currently because I forgot to turn them on before recording, but that's neither here nor there. I do not have a coffee mug next to me because I'm currently fasting for another hour until I eat dinner. But on the Sunday episode, I typically like to have a nice cup of cocoa with me. So that's the world and the scene that I am recording this podcast in. With that down, let's get into the second segment, which is going to be the weekly recap. It's going to be a lot shorter this week because honestly, not a whole lot of news came across the world this week that I didn't already cover on Sunday. The biggest piece of news I saw was that Casey Short got called up to the U.S. women's national team in place of Alana Cook. Alana Cook, who currently plays for PSG of Division I Feminine, was denied her call up to the U.S. for February camp by PSG. From what I know, PSG are well within their rights to do that. The reason that they brought was that if they let Alana Cook go over for February camp for the U.S., when she came back, she would have to quarantine for 7 days. And considering PSG is vying for a Division One feminine title, every point counts. So I can't say I really blame them. I feel gutted for Alana Cook because I think she's competing for an Olympic roster spot, and being away for a big tournament like the SheBelieves Cup has got to be dreadful to her, and I feel bad. But I guess that's kind of the way the cookie crumbles in this case. But I hope she gets a Division One feminine title this season. That would be sweet, especially over Lyon. That would be no small feat. But like I said, Casey Short, actually now known as Casey Krueger because she got married recently, she has been called up to the squad, and she is a defender who currently plays for the Chicago Red Stars, for those of you who may or may not know. And the Chicago Red Stars play in the NWSL, for those of you who also may or may not know. So just wrapping that around. One other big news item, the SheBelieves Cup begins next week. That's right. On Thursday, February 18th, it'll kick off with the U.S. Women's National Team playing against Canada, along with Christine Sinclair, Sophie Schmidt, Kaylin Sheridan, the like. They've got a good squad, so I'm excited to see what that is going to look like. I think I'm going to give a full preview of that match on next Thursday's podcast episode, which will air right before the match starts, just so it gives you guys something to look forward to. I was originally going to do it this Sunday, but I'm like, no, that doesn't make any sense. I might as well wait for the next Thursday episode of the pod. And some WSL fixtures have actually already been played this week. For those of you who may not know, the WSL typically plays their matches on weekends. That's Saturday and Sunday. But with games being made up, this made a weird week because all the games are happening on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and also Sunday. So some games have already been played. I'll get to that in our main topics soon enough. All right, guys. So that about does it for the weekly recap for the second segment. Are there any big news spots that I missed in the world of WOSO? Feel free to jump down in the comments below and let me know. So let's get into our third and final main segment before we get into the bread and butter of the podcast, and that's going to be my new favorite segment, which I like to call the Moment of Silence. The Moment of Silence is where we get to dedicate a few seconds of silence to anything in the world of WOSO that you worship, that you love, that you like, whatever you'd like to dedicate that moment of silence to. This is the opportunity to do it. It's kind of fun. It's just something I like to acknowledge and look back on in the week of WOSO. So for this week, my moment of silence is going to be dedicated to Casey Krueger for getting the call up to the U.S. Women's National Team squad for SheBelieves Cup. That's no small feat, and it's really cool to see. So, on the count of three, feel free to join me in that moment of silence. 1, 2, 3. Salute. All right, guys, who did you choose to dedicate your moment of silence to? Feel free to jump down in the comments below and let me know who you got. All right, guys, so let's start to get into our main topics now that all the segments are done. Really quick before we get into all of our main topics, I want to say this. I'm going to do something that I usually don't do in these videos, and I'm actually going to put in a recording that I did for one of the main topics and interweave it into the rest of the video. The reason being is because, shout out to VivMeanwhile11 from Instagram, had a little request from me to run some numbers to see what Arsenal would have to do to qualify for the Champions League for the rest of the WSL season. So after the first main topic, we'll get into that topic. I'm going to transition into that video, which is me from yesterday, so you get to talk to past me. How exciting is that? And then we'll interweave back to me today to talk about the rest of the main topics. So stick with me here. I appreciate you sticking with me through this transition and me trying something new, so hopefully it'll work out just fine. But I digress. Let's get into the first main topic. The first main topic is the FAWSL January Player of the Month and Manager of the Month nominees are in. That's right. So the month of January is over. February is in full swing. And this is something I like to do every month because why not? We follow the league really closely. It's always fun to speculate who's going to get the award. Let's start off with the more exciting side of the coin, in my opinion. Let's start off with the players. These are your nominees for the WSL Player of the Month for January. Up first, we've got the high-flying Chloe Kelly of Manchester City. She plays mainly on the right wing, and in the month of January, she scored 2 goals and 5 assists in 3 matches played. Moving on down the line, teammate Lauren Hemp, also of Manchester City, has scored 2 goals, 3 assists in 3 matches so far in January, or actually in January, because January's over. Going next down the line, Melanie Leupolz of Chelsea, who has just been on fire lately. She scored 2 goals in, I believe, 4 matches played for the month of January. Moving on down the line, we've got Ella Toone of Manchester United, which is close to my heart because I'm a Man United fan. She had 2 goals and 1 assist in the month of January for Manchester United. Then last but not least, the Honorable Fran Kirby of Chelsea Women's Football Club, who scored 5 goals in 4 matches in January. So those were all the nominees for Player of the Month for the WSL. Originally, if you guys follow my content closely, originally you will have seen my pick be Fran Kirby. However, after doing a little bit more research about each of these candidates, I actually am changing my pick to being Chloe Kelly. I think Chloe Kelly will be the WSL manager or player of the month. Being involved in 7 goals in 3 games is insane. That's the main reason. She she moved into the top 10 for both scoring and assists in the league for the entire season, and for a player to just do that as a professional football player in general, that's hard. In a top tier league like the WSL, it's just not an easy feat to be involved in 7 goals in 3 games. You're talking 2+ goals a game. That's insane. If Fran Kirby had played one less match and maybe scored one more goal, I think my mind might be a little bit more changed. But that's the main reason why I changed it to Chloe Kelly. Now, granted, I know a counter argument might be City hasn't really played against the greatest competition in January. They played against Brighton, Aston Villa, and West Ham, who were all bottom 4 in the table for the WSL. But like I said, to be involved in 7 goals at a professional level against any other professional team, that's out of this world. Chloe Kelly to me is emerging as being one of the top wingers in the league, and I'm excited to see what she does because I believe she's only like 19 years old. So it's going to be exciting times ahead for Chloe Kelly, and I can't wait to see what comes next for her. I want to add in one more nominee to the list that I think should get an honorable mention. So this is me amending the nominations lists. I think Sam Kerr should have been in the list for Player of the Month. The reason being is she had 2 goals and 3 assists across the 4 games, which, I mean, that's quite a bit of good goal involvement. It was more than her teammate Melanie Loopholes, and it was just as much as Lauren Hemp, but against better competition. So I don't know why she wasn't included in this list. I mean, you could even make an argument she probably could have made it ahead of Ella Toon, but it was weird to me that Sam Kerr wasn't included for the Player of the Month nominees for January. I don't know why. So I wanted to plug her as my honorable mention for that particular list. So, guys, who is your Player of the Month pick for the month of January? Feel free to jump down in the comments below and let me know your thoughts. All right, so let's move into the Manager of the Month then. There are only 3 nominees to my knowledge. Here are the nominees. We've got Emma Hayes of Chelsea. We've got Casey Stoney of Manchester United, number one in my heart. And then we've got Gareth Taylor of Manchester City. So let's go top to bottom here. Emma Hayes had 4 games and 12 points. She had a perfect month again. Chelsea are at the top of the table, and they've performed consistently well. They got one of the biggest results of the season in beating Manchester United in the month of January. That was their other. With that win, they overtook Manchester United in the table and are now number 1 and are still number 1 in the table thus far. So, really, really exciting stuff. Getting that big of a result at this stage in the season, they're getting hot at the right time. It's amazing. I'll just leave it at that. Moving down to Casey Stoney, she kept the team in second, Manchester United, despite losing one of the best players in the league in Tobin Heath. Tobin Heath, for those of you who don't know, is out for 10 to 12 weeks due to an ankle injury, and Casey Stoney has been able to keep her team together, keep them in that Champions League spot throughout the month of January. I believe she had 9 points in 12, or I'm sorry, 9 points in 3 games, if I'm not mistaken. So, or 9 points in 4 games. I'm sorry, guys, my brain is everywhere. So, not that great of a month for Casey Stoney for me personally, especially compared to the last 2 months where she was the WSL Manager of the Month. So, to me, she wouldn't be my pick for WSL Manager of the Month. Lastly, Gareth Taylor, he had 3 games and 9 points for Manchester City, so a perfect month for him. He got his team bumped in the Champions League spot. They overtook Arsenal in the month of January, and they've been gaining ground on Chelsea and United. They've been super consistent for like the last 2 or 3 months, just stomping teams that are below them in the table. And they scored 18 goals more than any other team in the month. So, and the thing is, he only did so in 3 games. So there's that as well. Who would be my overall pick for this month? It was really hard for me to whittle it down between Emma Hayes and Gareth Taylor. I'm going to have to go with Emma Hayes. The reason being is because of that important result she got against United. That was, I think, Chelsea's biggest test of the season so far, beating a team that was equal to them on points and I would argue talent and coaching prowess. So by beating them at a crucial time like that, it just gives them the edge. And plus, they had a perfect month and played 4 games, so more chances to screw up and lose, and they didn't manage to miss a whole nother one. And plus, now Emma Hayes has gotten this team firing on all cylinders. Pernille Harder scoring brace after brace. Sam Kerr's getting an assist and a goal every game. Fran Kirby's been on fire. Melanie Loopholes is starting to get into the mix. The defense has been solid. She's got the team really as a powerhouse, and I got to give her full credit to that. I think she deserved to actually. She was my pick actually last month for manager of the month, and I think it'd be crazy for her not to get it this month. So that is my pick for the WSL manager of the month, ladies and gentlemen. I will say one argument for Gareth. I think I would have given it to Gareth Taylor if they would have beaten Arsenal just a week earlier. For those of you who don't know, Arsenal and Manchester City played against each other last week. That was a really big match, but it took place in the month of February. If that would have taken place in January, I think I might have given the edge to Gareth Taylor. But nonetheless, I picked Emma Hayes for this month of January. Feel free to jump down in the comments below and let me know who your pick would be for manager of the month. Whew. All right, guys. So with that down out of the way, that'll bring us into the second main topic. The second main topic is, what is Arsenal going to have to do for the rest of the season to make to the Champions League spot? We're going to transition over to past me to talk about it for the next 10 to 15 minutes and talk about math and points. One thing to keep in mind, like I said, I recorded this yesterday before the Chelsea and Arsenal match took place today on Wednesday, February 10th. I recorded it on Tuesday, February 9th. That's something big to keep in mind as you're listening to the segment, or the main topic. So we'll transition and we'll get into it. Bye. All right, guys, thanks for making the time jump with me. You're talking to Past Bryce now because I'm recording this the day before the actual podcast recording. But anyways, let's get into the second main topic. The second main topic is, what must Arsenal do for the rest of the WSL season to make it to the Champions League? This question is inspired by VivMeetama11, who can be found on Instagram. Shout out to you. I appreciate you asking the question because I had a ton of fun running the numbers for this one. So, this question is inspired by the fact that unfortunately Arsenal lost to Manchester City. It's unfortunate depending on who you ask in the WSL table, but nonetheless, it kind of begs the question. Arsenal are outside the Champions League spots looking in, and the season's starting to wind down. There's about 9-10 games left, depending on which team you are. So, from a statistics, numeric, and points scoring perspective, what do you have to do in order to climb into the top 3 and make it to the Champions League for next season? Because I would argue Arsenal at a tipping point, so let's actually run some numbers and see how that goes. Just providing a little bit of context around this, given all of the transfer rumors, the morale at the club, I thought this analysis would be a little bit uplifting for all my Arsenal fans who are out there watching, so I hope this helps lift your spirits a little bit. Let's get right into it. So like I said, there's 9 weeks left of the season, which means for all my Arsenal fans, there's still plenty of time for the team to turn it around. Winning cures everything, and that applies to any sport, no matter which team, no matter how low the morale is or whatever. So don't worry, my Arsenal fans, there is hope for you yet. So, while many other teams might have only 9 games left while many teams only have 9 games left to play because there's 9 weeks left in the season, Arsenal actually have 11 games to play remaining. Remember, they have 2 games in hand because they had 3 games in a row that were postponed due to COVID, due to the pitch not being ready and equipped to handle the weather, so that makes up for the 11 games. So, let me frame kind of my argument where I'm coming from and how I'm calculating these points. So, for the sake of this particular main topic, I make an assumption to start out. First, I'm assuming that Arsenal is going to win out. Whether or not that's realistic, that's a whole different story, but I'm making the assumption that Arsenal is going to win out. That, in turn, would bring them to 56 points in the table until, or when the season comes to a close. So they'll have 56 points by the time the season ends. However, I'm also making the assumption that they're not going for the league title. I'm making the assumption that they're just going for a Champions League spot. What do they have to do to make it to the Champions League, which means just take in the top 3. So, let's start off with the absolute worst case scenario. What if Arsenal went out, but also City, United, and Chelsea also went out? Well, then, of course, that means Arsenal will not make it to the Champions League because they're behind on points right now, and if everybody wins out, then they have no shot. But The thing is, that's actually not possible because Arsenal play Chelsea and Man United at some point for the rest of the season. So it's not possible that all four of them went out. So there goes that worst case scenario right at the window. I just disproved the worst case scenario for Arsenal. So that's a good bit of positivity to start. Let's start off with what will it take for them to overtake Manchester City. Manchester City is currently third in the table. I'm going to double check their points really, really quickly. It looks like they have 30 points and Arsenal have 23. What's it going to take if Arsenal win out? What does Manchester City have to do to drop down below Arsenal in the table? So City is going to have to drop 4 points, it looks like. Whether it's losing a match and drawing a match or just drawing 4 matches, either way that would work. As long as they drop 4 points and Arsenal would better them on goal differential, then that would put Arsenal ahead of them and get them into that third spot. The goal difference is a big, big deal, and with how tight the top of the table is and how high goal differentials have been this season, goal differential is going to come down to be key for a lot of these scenarios. So that's something definitely to keep in mind. The other option is that City could drop 5 points, which means lose 1 and draw 2, and then that would mean Arsenal would overtake them on points. So there's that as well. The good news for this particular scenario is that City struggle against teams that are just as good on paper and also talent-wise, and they play Arsenal City still have to play United and Chelsea before the season's over. This Friday, City's going to be playing United in the derby, and last time out, they drew to them. So there's a little bit of hope there for Arsenal fans if City can just drop points against United. And then plus, later on in April, City's going to be playing Chelsea. That's going to be a Goliath of a match. It's going to be really, really big. So there's a decent chance there then for City to fold at least a few points. But what will it take for them to overtake Manchester United? So, Manchester United, it looks like, is going to have to drop 3 points, provided that Arsenal wins out for the rest of the season. So, that would mean if Arsenal were to beat Man United and win out, then they would go into the Champions League spot, which is really, really interesting. If United were to lose just 1 match and win every other match, it would bring them to 56 points. And Arsenal would then be tied on points by the end of the season and go ahead on goal difference. I'm just going to remind you guys, I have, for this particular argument, Arsenal winning out, meaning they will win every single game for the rest of the WSL season. I'll go into more scenarios about that in a little bit, but just for this scenario, pretend that Arsenal is going to win out. So if they do win out, that means they will have beaten Manchester United, and then that would propel them into that Champions League spot. So there's that. What will it take for them to overtake Chelsea? That's the third team who is ahead of them and also number 1 in the table currently. What will it take for them to overtake Chelsea, provided that Arsenal went out? Well, this one's going to be probably the toughest of the 3. Chelsea would have to lose 2 or draw 6, meaning that they have to drop 6 points between now and the end of the season. And I don't know if you guys have been listening or watching, but Chelsea's only lost once this season and only drawn like twice. So I don't really see that being very likely. However, there's really good news because Arsenal is going to be playing Chelsea tomorrow, which there's a big, big opportunity for Arsenal to gain some ground and gain some points. So tomorrow's match is going to be huge. I'm recording this the day before when I normally record because a lot of my arguments and assumptions are going to be valid only until tomorrow because Arsenal and Chelsea play tomorrow. So that's why I'm recording this early. I probably mentioned that in tomorrow's recording. But anyways, I'm sorry for getting off on a tangent there. Arsenal play Chelsea and Manchester City also play Chelsea. So if Arsenal beat them and City beat them, well, then there's a chance right there. And Arsenal, as of right now, is ahead on goal difference. So that's actually a distinct possibility, provided Arsenal win out. I want to be clear on that. Chelsea have only, like I said, Chelsea have only lost once and drawn twice this season. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that would play out should Arsenal win out. Now, all of that argument is going to frame the rest of these scenarios here. So we've covered the first scenario, which is what happens if Arsenal wins out. Will they make the Champions League? The answer is yes. If they win out, that will mean they will have the highest chance to best Man United and make it to the Champions League. So that's just kind of summarizing what happens if Arsenal wins out. We're going to shift a little bit here and hypothetically say, what if Arsenal drops 1 point, meaning that... Actually, I don't even think that's mathematically possible. What happens if Arsenal just drop a single point? Let's get into that a little bit further. So then that would mean that Arsenal at the end of the WSL season would be at 55 points. So for them to overtake City then, that would mean that City would have to drop 5 points and Arsenal would have to be better than them on goal difference. Or City could drop 6 points and then that would propel Arsenal up into the top 3 because they'd be ahead on points. What would it take for them to overtake United? United would have to drop 4 points, but Arsenal would have to stay ahead of them on goal difference. Or alternatively, United could drop 5 points as well. And like I said, Arsenal play United still this season, so that's going to be a huge match for Arsenal going forward and how this plays out. But what would it, if they drop a point, what would it take for them to overtake Chelsea? Chelsea would have to drop 7 points, but Arsenal would have to stay ahead on goal difference. Or Chelsea could drop 8 points, thus propelling Arsenal forward because they'd be ahead on points. So that's how it would shake up if Arsenal just drops 1 point, which that would be meaning drawing or losing a match. That's at least 1 point. Now, let's shift a little bit further. What happens if Arsenal drops 2 points? In that case, Arsenal at the end of the WSL season would be at 54 points. So if that were to happen, what would it take for them to overtake Manchester City? Manchester City would have to drop 6 points, in which Arsenal would have to be better than them on goal differential, and then they would move up. Or City would have to drop 7 points. You can do whatever scenarios you like to come up with those 6 or 7 points, but that would have to that's what would have to happen if Arsenal drops 2 points. What would it take for them to overtake United in that particular case? Well, United would have to drop 5 points, and Arsenal would have to be better on goal difference, or United could drop 6 points. Which, like I said, if Arsenal beats United, that likelihood becomes really, really high. Or not really, really high, I guess. It becomes a lot more likely if Arsenal can just beat United. What would it take for Arsenal to overtake Chelsea if Arsenal drops 2 points? Well, Chelsea in that case would have to drop 8 points, and Arsenal would have to be better on goal differential. Or Chelsea would have to drop 9 points, meaning lose 3 matches or draw every single match for the rest of the season. To be blunt, that's not going to happen. I don't see Chelsea dropping very many points for the rest of the season unless Arsenal beats them and shocks us all tomorrow for the match, which I hope kind of happens because that would be really, really sweet. Especially since I'm a Man United fan, so I'm a little biased here. But anyway, stick with me here, guys. That brings us through the scenario of what happens if Arsenal drops 2 points for the rest of the season. What would happen now if Arsenal were to drop 3 points for the remainder of the season, meaning that they lose a match or they draw 3 matches and they win the rest? Well, that would mean Arsenal would be at 53 points. With Arsenal at 53 points, what would they have? What would City, United, and Chelsea have to do for Arsenal to overtake them? Let's start off with City again. So City would have to drop 7 points, and Arsenal would have to be better on goal differential. Or City could just drop 8 points. United, for Arsenal to overtake United, provided that Arsenal dropped 3 points, United would have to drop 6 points, which would be losing 2 matches or drawing 6. In that case, Arsenal would have to be better on goal difference, and then they would overtake United in the table for that Champions League spot. Or United could just drop 7 points, in which Arsenal would be better on points at the end of the season and overtake them in the table. Now, lastly, if Arsenal drops 3 points, what would Chelsea have to do to be overtaken? Chelsea would have to drop 9 points, and Arsenal would have to be better on goal difference. Or Chelsea could drop 10 points, in which Arsenal would overtake them in the table on points automatically. So, if Arsenal drops 3 points, meaning if they lose a match or if they draw 3 matches, it starts to become a lot tougher for them to get to the Champions League, because then at that point you're hoping at minimum that any one of these 3 teams drops 6 points, meaning they lose 2 matches or they draw 6, That at minimum, that would be the scenario if they overtook United. So if Arsenal loses again at all for the rest of the season, or it draws a few times, the picture becomes a little bit murkier for their Champions League hopes. So every game really counts when they start dropping 3 or more points, which can be kind of scary. But let's dive into one more scenario. Let's dig a little bit deeper. We're going to jump here a little bit to what happens if Arsenal drops 6 points, meaning if they lose 2 matches or if they happen to draw 6 out of their remaining matches. That would mean Arsenal would be at 50 points at the end of the WSL season. So what would happen with City, United, and Chelsea for them to be overtaken by Arsenal? In that case, City would have to drop 10 points and Arsenal would have to be better on goal difference, or City would have to drop 11 points. In that case, Arsenal would be better than City on points. What would have to happen with United? United would have to drop 9 points, and Arsenal would have to be better on goal difference. Or United could drop 10 points, in which Arsenal would overtake them just on points alone. Lastly, what would Chelsea have to do in that case? Chelsea would have to drop 12 points, and Arsenal would have to be better on goal difference. Or Chelsea would have to drop 13 points for Arsenal to overtake them in the table. So, guys, like I said, I'm just going to kind of sum this up. If Arsenal drop anywhere between 3 and 6 points, the climbing the hill to make the Champions League becomes a lot more difficult. However, they have a really good opportunity against Chelsea and Man United for the rest of the season to gain a ton of ground. Those are going to be some must-win matches for Arsenal, and I believe that they can do it. It's just they're going to have to kind of go into desperation mode a little bit and scratch and claw their way for the rest of the season in order for them to do it. I think they have the talent to do it. Will they do it? That remains to be seen. Now, with all of this in mind, what do I think Arsenal fans should hope for? First, I think Arsenal needs to, at minimum, beat or draw against Man United. You can't lose, because if you lose, that's when those big point scenarios start to trickle in, where you're hoping that after you lose to United, that they drop 6 points the rest of the season. That's a tough ask, especially with United, Chelsea, and City only really losing once or twice apiece this season. That's a pretty big ask. So for me, they're going to need to beat or draw against Man United at minimum. At least with a draw, it keeps a little bit of hope alive. If they keep more hope, though, if they end up beating United later on in the season. So that is going to be a very, very interesting match. I think we'll have a little bit more clarity into the table by then, because I don't believe they play United for at least another month. So we'll have to stay tuned for that. But what really matters in this equation is let me rephrase, back up. What I don't really think matters as much is if they draw to Chelsea. If for whatever reason they play tomorrow and they draw to Chelsea and they drop a couple points, I still think it keeps them in the running given the scenarios I described below. Because if they draw to Chelsea, then that means they've dropped 2 points. And in that particular case, then, they would just need United to drop 5 points for the rest of the season, which, if they beat them later on in the coming weeks, then they would gain ground on that, and then United would just have to draw 2 more times, and they're in. So I think what I'm saying is, as an Arsenal fan, hope that they win out, because that becomes the easiest case scenario throughout the rest of the season, and you will make it to the Champions League. But if that's not a realistic hope, then I would say hope that they draw to Chelsea tomorrow when they play them on Wednesday night. That's Wednesday, February 10th. And then beating United would probably be the smoothest way and most likely way that you'd be able to make the Champions League at the end of the season. But like I said, with those are going to be the 2 most important games, but it's important to keep in mind that they've got to win pretty much all the rest of their other matches throughout the season too. So every match for Arsenal is going to count. So I just want to be really clear before I wrap up this main topic here. For my fellow Arsenal for my Arsenal fans who are out there panicking right now, don't worry. There's hope. There's a lot of time for the rest of the season. I'm not an Arsenal fan myself. I'm being empathetic by employing what I'd want my team to do here. But if I'm Arsenal, I'm hoping that they draw to Chelsea and that they beat United. At that point, you're looking at really, really solid hopes throughout the rest of the season to make it to that Champions League spot. All right, guys. So, what do you think Arsenal will be finishing at the end of the WSL season? Where in the table do you think they'll get to? Do you think they'll pull off a miracle and win the league? Do you think they'll get the Champions League spot? Feel free to jump down in the comments below and let me know your thoughts. Also, VivMino11, thank you so much for the question. I had so much fun doing this. So, let's get into the third main topic then. Transition a little bit with me. Hello guys, welcome back to the other main topics for this afternoon. I just gave you the points rundown for main topic number 2, which was what does Arsenal have to do to make it to the Champions League for next season. Let's that down another way. Let's get into the third main topic, which is going to be the match week 15 catch-up. So like I said, with this being a weird week in the WSL, some games have already taken place, but some games have yet to take place. So I'm going to catch you up on the results that have already occurred this week and also give you a preview for what's to come for the rest of the WSL week. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on, so let's just go through who's all played so far. Well, 2 games actually already got postponed for reasons that are unknowns to me. I didn't have a chance to research before I started the pod today, but I will just tell you, Aston Villa and Birmingham City, they were postponed today, along with Tottenham Hotspur and Bristol City, which was also postponed. I was really looking forward to seeing the result from the Tottenham and Bristol game because Bristol's been on a tangent run lately where they've been playing very well, and they're actually in the Conti Cup final, which is the Continental Tires League Cup final, full name. I heard another podcast I like to listen to call it the Conti Cup. I like that much better than saying Continental Tires League Cup because that is just a mouthful to say out loud. So, anyways, those 2 games got postponed, but 2 others have been played, first of which was Brighton and Hove Albion and West Ham's United. Brighton and Hove Albion won by a scoreline of 1-0. Let me double check who scored in that game. It looks like Eileen Whalen scored again for Brighton and Hove Albion. That's her second game in a row scoring. I'd say it's a big result for Brighton because they were in relegation talks just 2 weeks ago after they lost to Bristol City. And now that focus seems to have shifted to West Ham because West Ham are deeply falling into the table right now. They are currently at 11th. And only 2 points ahead of Bristol City. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that ends up playing out. However, what was the second game? What was the most important game for Arsenal all season, which was they were playing Chelsea this afternoon, and unfortunately they have lost. They have dropped 3 points. So translate that to the second main topic, which we just discussed. They've got quite a hole to dig out for the rest of the season, but Chelsea won by a scoreline of 3-0. Pernille Harder, like I said earlier, has been clicking at all cylinders. She had a brace, and then Fran Kirby topped it off in the 90th minute with another goal of hers. So, with Arsenal dropping 3 points today, I'm just going to remind you guys from the last segment what they would have to do. Basically, what would have to happen is United now will have to drop 6 points and Arsenal have to be better on goal difference. City would have to drop 7 points, and Arsenal would have to be better on goal difference. And Chelsea would have to drop 9 points and also be better on goal difference. So basically, Arsenal just got to keep winning now. They've got to keep winning. They've got to beat United later on in the season. And they've got to hope that those top 3 teams lose some games because otherwise it's going to be looking hard-pressed for them, unfortunately. But keep the faith, my friends, if you're an Arsenal fan out there. It's not all the hope is lost. There's still plenty of time to go, so keep your heads up. All right, so that's all the matches that have been played so far this particular week. What is going to be going on for the rest of the week? So, sorry, I'm trying to catch up here. Okay, so what are the rest of the matches going on for the weekend? There's 1, 2, 3, 4 more, all really exciting matches. The most exciting match, though, in my game of the week is the Manchester Derby. That's right. I believe it's the 3rd one this season already, which we can't get enough of them. I love them. Manchester City and Manchester United will be playing against each other on Friday, of course, while I'll be at work. So when I do the live stream on Instagram on Friday at around 3, we'll likely talk about it, but everybody will have to fill me in because I will have missed the game. But my score prediction for this one, I've got this one ending in a draw. I've got it ending by a scoreline of Manchester City 2, Manchester United 2. This is going to be another huge result for both sides and another big test for Manchester City. The only reason I'm calling this a draw is because City have proven to crumble against really top teams. Chelsea, whenever they played against United early in the season. They had a 2-0 lead, a commanding 2-0 lead early on, and United almost came back and even won the game later on. United are coming off a devastating loss. They just lost to, oh my goodness, I'm already forgetting who they lost to last week. I think it was Reading. Yeah, they lost to Reading last week. I think Stoney's going to be pissed about it and come out with a really nice, solid tactical plan. However, I don't think it's going to be in the players' heart to win it. If I'm being honest, they really looked off, like so off to the point last week where I'm having doubts as to how they're going to start doing in the future. They just really didn't look on the same page. Something was up. And if they get it resolved before this match, then great. I think they have a chance to win it, but I don't know if they have enough conviction to do so. However, as a United fan, I want to be optimistic. So I would say that this 2-2 draw is optimistic for United, given that City has been on a crazy form lately. They've been winning game after game after game. I think they've won their last 5 in all WSL competition. So it's going to be really interesting to see. I wouldn't be surprised if City won this one, but like I said, as an optimistic Manchester United fan, I've got this ending in a draw, and our Champions League, or not an hour because I don't play for them, but I've got a lot of optimism in Manchester United's Champions League hopes staying alive. So thanks for indulging me on that one, guys. What other matches are going on? We've got Aston Villa and Arsenal playing against each other. The good news is I'm predicting for Arsenal fans that this match will end at Aston Villa 0, Arsenal 4. With Arsenal losing today to Chelsea, every single point in every single game matters, even goal difference at this point. So they don't have a choice. They have to win. And I've got them winning this one by a lot, considering Aston Villa keeps falling in the table, and I believe is bottom 3 at this point. Moving on to what I think is going to be one of the most interesting matches of the week. It's going to be Reading against Everton. Reading have been on the upswing in the last few weeks. They shown that they can compete with the top teams. They beat Manchester United last week by a score of 2-0. They've been hanging in there with really tough teams. Their manager has been showing really strong tactics. Everton haven't really been very convincing. They really don't look like they have a plan when they're out there on the pitch, if I'm being honest. They've got new pieces in Jill Scott and Alicia Lehman. So far, it hasn't proved fruitful. I don't think that's made that big of a difference. So I think Reading for this match is going to ride the momentum of last week's match and win this one by a scoreline of 2-1. If Everton was in full swing and wasn't struggling, I'd feel differently. But at this point, I've got Reading riding the wave. And then last but not least, we are at Bristol City and Chelsea. This is a Continental Tires League Cup final preview because they will be playing each other for that League Cup later on in the spring. It's going to be cool, but I think Chelsea's going to win this one pretty handily. I've got Chelsea winning this one by scoreline of 5-0. Chelsea have been at a really good run of form recently, aside from losing to Brighton, which I think that was interesting, but I think they'll recover just fine and beat Bristol City pretty handily. It's going to be a top of the team table against a very bottom of the team table, so that's why I've got that score going on. But guys, what match are you super excited for? Are you excited for the derby on Friday? Feel free to jump down in the comments below and let me know your thoughts or your score predictions. Those are always fun to do too. All right, guys, so with those 3 main topics down and out of the way, we are coming upon our last main topic of the episode. We have finished all of our WSL content from across the pond. I'm in the US, that's why I say across the pond, because WSL England across the Atlantic Ocean. Ha. But anyway, let's get into the 4th and final main topic for this podcast episode, which is going to be all about Casey Krueger, knee short, getting the call up to the U.S. women's national team. So, like I said earlier on Monday, it was announced that Alana Cook was denied by her current club, which is Paris Saint-Germain of Division 1 Feminine, from joining the U.S. women's national team for February camp for the SheBelieves Cup, which starts next week Thursday, and I can't wait. We're going to have so much podcast content to talk about. But for those of you who are not aware, it sounds like PSG are within their rights to do that. Clubs can deny players from going to perform on international duty under certain circumstances. I don't know the official rules on that from a FIFA standpoint, so take that with a grain of salt. What I've been mainly hearing is that the SheBelieves Cup isn't in a quote-unquote FIFA window, so that gives PSG a little bit of leverage. And then plus 2, with the mandatory quarantine for 7 days that Alana Cook would have to undergo if she went back to PSG and started playing in competition, that would also give them a little bit more leverage to deny her her ability to go over for international duty. I don't know the official rules on that. Feel free to jump down in the comments below and enlighten me, but I will research that later on to give you more. Just know that Alana Cook wasn't able to go to camp, but she was selected. Um, with that void, Vlatko ended up selecting Casey Short, who is now Casey Krueger, like I said earlier, because she was married, I believe, earlier on this year. And she plays for the Chicago Red Stars. For those of you who don't know, the Chicago Red Stars are in the NWSL and are my pick to win the NWSL title this year. Casey has made, I believe, 33 caps for the U.S. Women's National Team. I'm sorry, 32 caps. The last one she made was actually in the 2020 SheBelieves Cup against Japan, where the U.S. won by a scoreline of 3-1, which, hooray, hooray, we always love a U.S. Women's National Team victory. She started making caps for international selection all the way back in Jill Ellis's tenure, so she's been a veteran with the team without having a ton of caps, if that makes sense. She's been around for a long time, and she's always been consistently in the conversation without being in the squad as much. But what does this kind of begs the question a little bit. This makes it interesting because what does this mean for the U.S. Women's National Team roster, like Olympic roster, going forward? Um, for me, not really a whole lot, right? The reason being is because I think this is a one-off situation in that Casey hasn't really been in any camps in like the last 3 or 4, dating all the way back to October, I believe, when we started having U.S. Women's National Team camps again. She hasn't appeared much for the team in big competitions like the World Cup or the Olympics over the course of her career. Unless she performs out of her mind for the SheBelieves Cup, I don't see her entering the conversation for being part of the Olympic squad. And I'd say the one thing that strengthens that argument is we're just coming off of a camp in which Vlatko took everybody and their sister in 10 defenders to the January camp and didn't include Casey Short in that list. So, and he also took 8 more in February and also didn't include Casey in that list. So, I mean, that's a big sample size, and he didn't take Casey. So, I mean, I think this is just a one off situation with that in mind, and I don't think she'll be part of the squad for the Olympics going forward. But there's also another little side note. I think that this sort of backs up the theory a little bit about Ali Krieger and Ashlyn Harris. For those of you who may be new to the podcast, in recent weeks I stated that even though Ali Krieger and Ashlyn Harris weren't selected to this particular camp, I still think that they will be in the Olympic roster going forward. I lost my train of thought. Oh my god, this is weird. Okay, so thanks for bearing with me for a second there, guys. I just totally lost my train of thought. But um, earlier I was saying, okay, maybe Allie and Ashlyn opted out for the camp. That was my theory in recent podcast weeks. But a lot of people were saying, okay, I'm really glad that Ashlyn and Allie aren't in the squad anymore because it's time to make way for youngins. It's time to make way for other talented players. But with Alana not being picked up, if Allie's exclusion would have been a question of talent, Allie would have been the next logical person in line. So, for example, if I'm Vlatko and I'm not taking Alana Cook and I left Allie Krieger off on my list because she wasn't in the talent pool that I wanted, well, you often take the next most talented person in that position. Well, the next most talented person in that position would be Allie Krieger. To me, it wouldn't be Casey Short. So by Vlatko bypassing Allie Krieger and just going to Casey Short, to me that says, okay, there's probably a deeper reason why Allie's not in this camp. I'm thinking it's because Allie and Ashlyn opted out and just chose not to go to camp, especially since Allie just got back from camp in January and performed really well in the Colombian friendlies. So I think I'm not saying that Alana Cook is more talented than Allie Krieger. I'm just saying if Alana Cook's not in it and neither is Allie Krieger selected, well, the next person in line would be Allie Krieger. Allie Krieger would be the first person on the list that I would grab talent-wise for defenders in my list. So, however, Vlatko didn't pick up Allie. He picked up the Short, who isn't the first person I would have picked. But for that reason, I'm thinking that Allie opted out for several other reasons. So, the flip side of that coin would be that Allie is so far off of Vlatko's radar and he's never going to call up her or Ashlyn again that he didn't even bother selecting her even with the vacancy. But like I said, with how well she performed against Colombia and she's been in the last few camps, Allie I'm speaking about, I'd say that that's slowly likely. So, guys, I did a really poor job explaining that. I lost my train of thought kind of in the middle there. So thanks for bearing with me and sticking with me. I greatly appreciate it. What do you guys make of this situation with Casey Krueger and being selected to the U.S. Women's National Team? I just want to be clear, I'm super pumped that she got the call-up because she is a vet that's been around for a long time, and I'm excited to see what she's got to bring to the team for the SheBelieves Cup. Feel free to jump down in the comments below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys, so this was a bit of a clunky episode, and I appreciate you sticking with me as always. It's been honestly an awesome honor and privilege to have you join me on this particular podcast. It's been phenomenal, and I greatly appreciate it. If you guys like this podcast, like what you're hearing, seeing, feel free to rate the podcast, like, comment, subscribe if you're on YouTube or otherwise. Enjoy all the rest of the matches for the rest of the weekend. Feel free to follow us on all our other social media platforms. I've been Bryce. This has been the Women's Soccer/Football Podcast. And until next time, have a great day.